The red warning lights flashed across the monitoring station as Commander Kim Tae rushed to his desk. He had never seen the emergency systems activate like this before. The screen showed incoming signals from deep space, but these were not from any human colony or ship. "Commander, you need to look at this right away," Lieutenant Park Hannah said from her station. Her hands were shaken as she worked the controls. "The signal is coming from the Galactic Tribunal." Kim Tae felt his heart skip a beat. For 300 years, the aliens of the galaxy had avoided Earth completely. They treated humans like dangerous animals that needed to stay locked away from civilized space. The Tribunal had made it very clear that humans were not welcome among the stars, but now they were calling for help. The main screen flickered to life, showing a map of nearby star systems. Large red zones covered entire solar systems, and the sight made Kim Tae's blood run cold. Whatever was happening out there was big enough to scare the aliens, who usually ignored Earth completely. "Play the message," Kim Tae ordered. The transmission began with static, then cleared to show several alien beings standing together. They looked nothing like humans. Some had scales, others had 4 arms, and one looked like a walking tree. But despite their different appearances, they all had the same expression on their faces: pure terror. "People of Earth," the lead alien spoke through a translation device. "We are the Emergency Council of the Galactic Tribunal. We come to you because we have nowhere else to turn." The image changed to show space battles and burning planets. Kim Tae watched in horror as entire cities were destroyed from orbit. Massive ships with crystal-like holes fired weapons that turned mountains into glass. "The Zephyrian Empire has been conquering our worlds for 2 years now," the alien continued. "They do not just defeat us in battle, they destroy everything we are. They take our children and turn them into weapons. They work our people to death in their minds. They show no mercy to anyone." Lieutenant Park Hannah brought up more footage on her screen. It showed prison camps filled with different alien species, all working under terrible conditions. Guards with insect-like features carried energy weapons and used them on anyone who moved too slowly. The alien spokesman appeared again, and Kim Tae could see tears in his large eyes. "We tried to fight them with our armies, but they are too strong. We tried to negotiate with them, offering them anything they wanted. Killed half our population just to show us what they thought of our offers." More images flashed across the screen. Empty planets that had once been green and full of life now looked like barren rocks. The Zephyrians had taken everything: water, air, even the soil. They left nothing behind but dead worlds. "We tried to surrender completely," another alien said, this one with blue skin and 4 arms. "We told them they could have everything if they would just let us live. They laughed at us and made us watch as they killed our elders and our sick." Tae felt anger building in his chest. He had seen war before, but this was something else entirely. This was not just conquest. It was the complete destruction of entire civilizations in Seoul. Defense Minister Lee Woo sat in his office reading the same reports. The weight of the decision ahead of him felt heavier than anything he had ever carried. The United Defense Council had been preparing for this day for generations, but he had never imagined it would come like this. The transmission continued with more testimony from survivors. Each story was worse than the last. Families torn apart, cultures destroyed, entire species facing extinction. Zephyrians seemed to enjoy causing pain as much as they enjoyed taking resources. "We know humans have a reputation for being dangerous," the lead alien said. "The stories say you fight like nothing else in the galaxy when you are pushed too far. We are begging you now. Please help us. We have heard that humans protect the weak, even when it costs them everything." The final part of the message showed a small blue creature, barely alive and covered in wounds. It could barely speak, but its words came through the translator clearly. "Humans, we know you could stay safe on your world, but they show no mercy to anyone. If you can help us, ... please. We have nothing left to offer except our gratitude." The transmission ended, leaving the monitoring station in complete silence. Kim Tae looked around at his staff, seeing the same mixture of anger and determination on every face. "Get me a direct line to the Defense Council," Kim Tae ordered, "and prepare a full analysis of everything we just saw. If we're going to war, we need to know exactly what we're fighting." Lieutenant Park Hannah was already working at her station. "Sir, there are more transmissions coming in. It looks like survivors from dozens of different worlds are sending us their stories." Kim Tae nodded grimly. The galaxy had ignored Earth for centuries, treating humans like monsters that needed to be contained. Now those same aliens were begging for the monsters to save them, and Kim Tae had a feeling that Earth was about to show the Zephyrians exactly why the rest of the galaxy feared humanity. The human ship dropped out of hyperspace, and Captain O. Min immediately knew they were too late to save this world. Through the main viewing window, he could see what had once been a beautiful planet called Kepler 442. The world that should have been green and blue was now brown and gray. "What happened here?" Lieutenant Choso whispered from her station. She was running scans of the planet below, and the numbers on her screen told a horrible story. "The Valdani lived here for thousands of years," Captain Omin said quietly. "According to our files, they were a peaceful people who never fought wars. They spent their time creating art and music. Now their world looked like a giant mining operation. Huge machines had torn apart entire continents, digging deep holes that went down for miles. The oceans that had once been crystal blue were now the color of mud, filled with chemicals from the mining operations. "Captain, I'm detecting life signs on the moon," Choso reported. "It looks like there's some kind of settlement there." Min nodded. "Take us there. We need to find out what really happened to these people." The moon base was nothing more than a collection of emergency shelters and basic life support systems. Thousands of Valdani survivors lived in conditions that barely kept them alive. Commander Yuda took a small team down to the surface to interview the refugees. The Valdani were tall, thin beings with forearms and skin that changed color based on their emotions. Right now, all of them showed the dark purple that meant deep sadness and fear. Commander Yuda approached an elderly Valdani who seemed to be some kind of leader. "My name is Commander Yuda from Earth," she said through her translation device. "We received your call for help." The old Valdana's forearms shook as he tried to stand up straight. When he spoke, tears fell from his large eyes like drops of liquid silver. "I am Elder Kethmos," he said. "I have lived for 200 years, but I have never seen evil like this before." "Tell me what happened here," Yuda said gently. The elder's skin turned an even darker shade of purple. "The Zephyrians came from the sky like a plague. At first we tried to welcome them. We thought they might be traders or explorers. We offered them food and shelter." He paused, his breathing heavy with emotion. "They laughed at us. They said we were weak and stupid. Then they started taking our people." "Taking them where?" Yuda asked. "To the conditioning centers," the elder replied. "They took our young ones first. My own grandchildren were among them. When they came back weeks later, they were not the same. They carried weapons and their eyes were empty. They no longer knew their own families." Commander Yuda felt sick to her stomach. "They turned your children into soldiers." "Worse than that," Elder Kethmos said. "They made them into weapons pointed at their own people. My grandson stood in front of me with a gun and did not even recognize my face. The Zephyrians made us watch as our own children became our guards." The elder's voice broke completely. "We begged them to stop. We offered them everything we had, our art, our music, our technology. We even offered to become their slaves if they would just let us keep our families together." "What did they say?" Yuda asked, though she was afraid to hear the answer. "They laughed," the elder whispered. "They said begging was entertainment for them. Then they made us watch as they killed the oldest and weakest among us, just to show us what our pleas were worth to them." Back on the ship, Captain Omin was reviewing the sensor data when the proximity alarms started screaming. 3 large ships had appeared out of nowhere surrounding the human vessel. These ships looked like they were made of black crystal, with sharp edges that seemed designed to frighten anyone who saw them. The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of something that looked like a giant insect. It had compound eyes that reflected light like mirrors and mouthparts that moved when it spoke. "I am Fleet Commander Zach Thule of the Zephyrian Empire," the creature said. Its voice came through the translator as a series of clicks and hisses. "You are trespassing in our territory." Captain Omin stood up slowly, keeping his face calm. "We are on a diplomatic mission from Earth. We come in peace to investigate reports of peace, Zakthul interrupted, and its mouth parts spread wide. In what might have been a smile, there is no peace for inferior species. You will surrender your ship immediately, or you will be destroyed. We are not here to fight, Omin said firmly. We are here too. You have 10 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare for boarding. Zakthul cut him off again. After that, you will have the honor of serving our empire as slaves. Captain Omin looked around at his crew. Every face showed the same mixture of anger and determination. Cannot surrender, he said quietly. Zakthul made a casual gesture. With one of its clawed hands, immediately, one of the refugee transports near the moon exploded in a ball of fire. 8,000 Valdani families died in an instant. Now you understand the only language we speak, Zakthul said with obvious pleasure. Surrender, or watch more of them die. Captain Omin stared at the alien commander, his jaw set with cold fury. The time for diplomacy was over, deep beneath the mountains outside Seoul. Admiral Namjoon walked into the largest war room ever built on Earth, the massive underground chamber. Buzzed with activity as hundreds of officers worked at computer stations, preparing for something that had never happened before in human history. Admiral on deck. Someone called out, and the room fell silent. Namjoon looked up at the giant holographic display that filled the center of the room. It showed space around Earth, but instead of the usual empty darkness, it was filled with ships. More ships than anyone had ever seen in one place before. 1,200 vessels, his aide reported quietly. Everything from our biggest battleships down to converted cargo ships. Every nation on Earth has contributed something to this fleet. Namjoon nodded slowly. When Earth's leaders had made the decision to help the alien refugees, they had not done it halfway. This was the largest fighting force humanity had ever assembled. It was all heading into unknown space to fight an enemy they barely understood. The Zephyrians have conquered 47 different worlds, Namjoon announced to the room. They always use the same plan. They show up with overwhelming force, destroy anyone who fights back, and then spend years breaking down the survivors, until they become slaves. He pointed to different sections of the display, but they have never fought humans before. They expect their enemies to fight the same way every time. We are going to show them something completely different. Across the room, Captain Shinnei watched the briefing from her station. Her ship, the Mercy's Edge, looked like a hospital vessel from the outside. It was painted white with red crosses and had all the equipment needed to treat wounded soldiers. But hidden inside its medical bays were some of the most advanced weapons systems Earth had ever built. Captain Shin, Admiral Nam called to her. How are the communication networks? All systems ready, sir, she replied. We have operatives in 17 different star systems now. Resistance groups have been waiting for this day. For months, human intelligence agents had been secretly traveling to Zephyrian-controlled worlds. They had made contact with underground resistance movements, groups of aliens who had been fighting the occupiers with whatever weapons they could find. Now these groups were ready to coordinate their attacks with the human fleet. On Luna Station, Colonel Beho put his special forces through their final training exercises. These soldiers wore black armor that made them look like demons from old stories, but their mission was not to spread fear. It was to bring hope. Listen up, Colonel Bay told his troops as they floated in the zero-gravity training chamber. When we board those enemy ships, we are not there to destroy everything we see. We are there to free prisoners and save lives. One of his soldiers raised a hand. What if the Zephyrians try to use prisoners as human shields? Then we show them why Earth's special forces are the best in the galaxy, Bay replied. We have trained for every possible situation. We can take down enemy combatants without harming innocent people. That is what separates us from them. The soldiers nodded and went back to their practice. They ran through scenarios where they had to rescue hostages, disable enemy weapons, and secure alien prisoners all at the same time. It was the kind of complex operation that the Zephyrians had never seen before. In another part of the preparation, Dr. Hansu worked on something that no military had ever used before: psychological warfare on an interstellar scale. Her team had built special ships that were designed to mess with the enemy's minds. Zephyrians use fear as their primary weapon, Dr. Han explained to Admiral Nome. They make their victims afraid by showing them how hopeless resistance is. We are going to turn that fear back on them. Her ships would broadcast messages in the Zephyrian language on every frequency they used. The messages were simple but powerful. Surrender now and face justice in our courts. Continue your crimes and face total destruction. Will it work? Admiral Nome asked. The Zephyrians have never faced an enemy that could reach into their minds like this, Dr. Han replied. They are used to being the ones who cause fear. When they start feeling afraid themselves, it will confuse them and make them make mistakes. The final preparations were completed. Admiral Nome received a message from Earth's High Command. It was short, but every word carried the weight of humanity's decision to enter the galactic stage as protectors rather than conquerors. Admiral Nam Jun, the message read. You carry with you the hopes of not just Earth, but of every innocent being suffering under Zephyrian oppression. Show them what justice looks like when it is delivered by fire, but remember that our fire burns away evil while protecting the good. Nam Jun looked around the war room one last time. In a few hours, all 1,200 ships would jump to hyperspace and begin humanity's first interstellar war. They were not going to conquer territory or capture resources. They were going to show the galaxy that someone was finally strong enough to stand up to the bullies. All stations report ready, his communications officer announced. Then let's go remind the galaxy why they were afraid of us in the first place, Admiral Nome said quietly. The war room erupted in activity as the final countdown began. Space lit up like a fireworks display as 1,200 human ships appeared at exactly the same moment across 17 different star systems. Admiral Nam Jun stood on the bridge of his flagship, Soul's Vengeance, watching as the most complex military operation in human history began to unfold. All fleets report successful jump completion, his communications officer announced. We have achieved total surprise. Namjoon smiled grimly. The Zephyrians had been expecting humans to attack like every other species. They had conquered with a big fleet charging straight at their strongest defenses. Instead, human ships had appeared, everywhere at once, cutting off escape routes and isolating enemy forces. Sir, Captain Kimbo reports that his stealth ships are in position, another officer said. All Zephyrian communication networks are being jammed. For weeks, Kimbo's invisible ships had been slowly moving into position around Zephyrian military bases and command centers. Now they activated their jamming systems all at once, leaving the enemy blind and unable to coordinate their defenses. Commander Park Jin, begin the broadcasts, Admiral Nam ordered. From every human ship, the same message began transmitting on all Zephyrian frequencies. Park Jin had worked with linguists to make sure the message was delivered in perfect Zephyrian language, using words that would hit them where it hurt most. Tension Zephyrian forces, the message said. You are surrounded. Release all prisoners immediately. Withdraw from all occupied worlds. Surrender to face justice in our courts. Is your only warning. You have 1 hour to comply. The response came quickly from Fleet Commander Zach Thul's flagship. The insect-like alien appeared on screen, his compound eyes glowing with rage. Humans. He screeched through the translator. You dare threaten the Zephyrian Empire? We will show you what happens to those who oppose us. What happened next made Admiral Nam's blood boil. On the surface of Kepler 442, where the Valdani refugees were being held, Spherian guards began dragging prisoners out of their cells. They lined them up in front of cameras and started shooting them one by one, broadcasting the executions to the human fleet. They're killing the prisoners to spite us, Commander Park Jin said, his voice tight with anger. Admiral Name watched the executions for exactly 10 seconds before his expression turned to stone. All units, weapons free. Operation Righteous Fire is now active. What followed was not a battle in any traditional sense. It was more like a precision surgery performed with laser weapons and guided missiles. Human forces had spent months studying how the Zephyrians fought, learning their weaknesses and blind spots. Captain Oda led the first boarding assault against a Zephyrian command ship. Her Marines wore advanced armor that could deflect enemy weapons, while their own guns fired rounds designed to disable, not kill. Their first priority was always to secure the prisoner holds and free the captives. Breaching the hull now, Oda reported as her team cut through the enemy ship's armor. Sensors showed 200 prisoners on Deck 7. The Zephyrians had never faced enemies who could fight room by room with such patience and skill. They were used to overwhelming opponents with brute force, but the humans moved like ghosts, appearing where they were least expected and disappearing before the enemy could react. In the Proxima system, the converted cargo ship Bison's Hammer revealed its true purpose. What had looked like a harmless freighter suddenly opened up like a flower, launching hundreds of automated fighter drones that moved with perfect coordination. These drones were different from anything the Zephyrians had seen before. Instead of trying to destroy enemy ships, they targeted specific systems, weapons, engines, life support. They left the ships intact, but helpless, ready to be boarded and their prisoners rescued. "It's working perfectly," reported the Hammer's captain. "We're disabling their ships faster than they can repair them." The most dramatic action took place in the Theta Centauri system, where Colonel Beho's special forces landed on the main prison planet. This world held over 1 million prisoners from dozens of different species, all working as slaves in massive mining operations. Beho's commandos moved through the prison complex like avenging angels. They had trained for months to fight in exactly this kind of environment where every corridor might hold both enemy guards and innocent prisoners. "Guard Post 7 secured," one of his soldiers reported. Freeing prisoners from Cell Block D, the Zephyrian guards had never faced enemies who could fight with such precision. They were used to controlling their prisoners through fear and overwhelming force, but the humans moved with surgical accuracy, taking out guards while avoiding any harm to the captives. As the prison blocks opened one by one, the freed aliens looked at their human rescuers with expressions of wonder and disbelief. Many had given up hope of ever seeing freedom again. "The humans came," one elderly alien whispered to another. "The stories were true. They really came to save us." The fighting continued for 18 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Zephyrians had built their empire on the assumption that their enemies would fight like everyone else they had conquered. They had never faced an enemy that could adapt, coordinate, and execute such a complex plan. When the last Zephyrian ship surrendered, Admiral Namjoon looked at the tactical display showing all 17 star systems. Every red marker that had represented enemy control was now blue. The Zephyrian Empire had ceased to exist as a fighting force. Millions of enslaved beings were finally free. 6 months after the war ended, Fleet Commander Zach Thule found himself in a place he never thought he would see, kneeling in a courtroom, begging for mercy. The irony was not lost on him. This was the same courtroom where he had once forced the leaders of conquered worlds to plead for their lives. Now, he was the one doing the pleading. "Please," Zach Thule clicked through his translator, his compound eyes dim and lifeless. "We surrender completely. Accept your victory. Grant us the mercy that warriors show to defeated enemies." Admiral Namjoon stood at the back of the courtroom, watching the creature who had ordered the deaths of billions of innocent beings. Round the room, representatives from dozens of liberated species filled the seats. Some of them called out for immediate execution. Others demanded that the Zephyrians face the same tortures they had inflicted on their victims. But Judge Li Min, who had been chosen by Earth's highest courts to oversee these trials, raised her hand for silence. "You ask for the mercy of warriors," Judge Li Min said calmly. "You will receive exactly the same mercy you showed to others, the mercy of justice under law." Zach Thule's mandibles clicked in confusion. He had expected either immediate execution or the kind of brutal revenge that his own species would have demanded. The concept of a fair trial was completely foreign to him. The trials that followed lasted 6 months and shocked the galaxy. Human prosecutors presented evidence with careful precision, documenting every crime the Zephyrians had committed. But what amazed the alien observers was that the Zephyrians also had defense lawyers, humans who worked just as hard to ensure their clients receive fair treatment. "I do not understand," Zach Thule said to his human defense attorney during one break in the proceedings. "Why do you help me? Order the deaths of your species' allies." The lawyer, a young woman named Kim So, looked at him with sad eyes. Because justice means everyone gets a fair trial, even those who never gave others the same chance. Many Zephyrians broke down completely when they realized that their human captors were feeding them proper food, providing medical care, and treating them with basic dignity, even while prosecuting them for war crimes. It was a concept they could not understand after centuries of showing no mercy to anyone. While the trials continued, Captain Shinnei commanded a different kind of fleet. Her ships were painted white with red crosses, and they carried doctors, engineers, and supplies instead of weapons. These humanitarian vessels traveled to every world the Zephyrians had damaged, bringing aid to the survivors. "Captain, the Valdani elders want to speak with you," her communications officer reported. As they orbited the world that was once called Kepler-442, the planet was slowly healing, where there had once been massive strip mines. Human engineering teams were working with local survivors to restore the landscape. The gray oceans were being cleaned with advanced filtration systems, and new forests were being planted where old ones had been destroyed. Elder Kethmos, it's the same Valdani who had told Commander Yuda about his grandchildren being turned into weapons, met Captain Shinnei at the new settlement they were building. "We want to pay you for your help," the elder said, his forearms holding out containers of precious gems. "We have little left, but we want to give you something." Captain Shinnei gently pushed the gems away. "We do not want payment, elder. We came here to help, not to profit." The old Valdana's skin changed to a color that meant confusion, but ... all conquerors demand tribute. "It is the way of the galaxy. We are not conquerors," Shinnei replied. "We are friends." Similar scenes played out across 17 star systems as human aid workers rebuilt schools, hospitals, and homes without asking for anything in return. The liberated species watched in amazement as the humans, who had destroyed the Zephyrian war machine with such efficiency, now worked just as hard to heal the damage that had been done on the world that had once been the Zephyrians' main prison. Planet now renamed Liberation, the survivors built a memorial. It was made of black stone and covered with the names of every being who had died under Zephyrian rule. The names were carved in hundreds of different languages and writing systems, representing dozens of species. At the bottom of the memorial, in letters that could be read by any species in the galaxy, was a simple message. When mercy was denied, justice answered with fire. When fire was finished, mercy returned with healing. When the trials finally ended, Admiral Nem Jun stood before the Galactic Tribunal one last time. The alien leaders who had once treated humans like dangerous animals now looked at him with respect and gratitude. Admiral Nem Jun, the lead tribune, said the Galactic Tribunal offers humanity full membership and a seat on our governing council. Namjoon shook his head politely. "We appreciate the offer, but we did not come here to join your government. We came because innocent people needed help, and someone had to answer their call." He looked around at the assembled alien leaders. "Strong exists to protect the weak, not to rule over them or profit from them. If you ever face another threat like the Zephyrians, call us. But do not expect us to stay and govern your worlds." As the human fleets prepared to return to Earth, they received thousands of messages from the liberated worlds. The messages were all different. They carried the same basic meaning. They heard our pleas for mercy when no one else would listen. They answered with justice when we had given up hope. They brought fire to burn away our oppression, then stayed to help us rebuild from the ashes. Across the galaxy, humanity's reputation was established forever.